Around 3 years ago, I was hectically packing to leave for the weekend, but then I noticed I didn't clean the dishes. So I turned on the water just to make sure that things don't stick, finished packing and left the house. There were just two big problems. Number one, I forgot to turn off the water, and number two, this part of the sink was broken. And even though this led to disaster, it taught me a crucial lesson that can help anyone whenever they're feeling anxious or stressed. But to fully understand this takeaway, we have to first see what happened next. I just arrived at the train station around 100 kilometers away, and my roommate was calling, and he just got home. And I did not only leave on the water, but I left on hot water. So hot that the floor cracked open, the kitchen broke, and 4 stories below, the water was running and damaged some kitchens of the people living below me. But because the water was so hot, it started steaming, and the fire alarms went off, the firefighters were called, and they saw all the windows were full of steam. So they cracked open the door, stormed the house, turned off the water and left again. And at that moment, my heart was pounding, stress, anxiety rose. What did I do? And how much damage did I cause? So I called my parents, but this made things even worse. No, they didn't scream at me, but we looked at the insurance papers, and because I was more than 1 year abroad, it was unsure if they could even pay this. So I hung up the phone and was just sitting there, staring into nothing. But then comes the lucky coincidence, because I just started listening to a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. And I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to get my mind somewhere else, so I started to listen to the book again. And that book mentioned there's 3 simple steps to directly quit worrying. And when you're also feeling anxious or stressed right now, then maybe it can be valuable to do this alongside of me. Now, the first step was to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I really didn't want to think about that. But I just did it, and had to admit the worst case will probably be a damage of around 20,000 euros, and I sit on the costs. So how was that supposed to help me? And the second step seemed even more ridiculous, because it mentioned to accept your worst fate. And I was sitting there, and it took me a while, and my thoughts were still racing, my heart was still pounding, I was still feeling highly anxious. But after a while I was ready to accept that. My heart slowed down, I was still in pain, I was still upset, but I was able to think more clearly again. Which brings us to the final step. Calmly proceed to prevent the worst. And so I did. I called my parents, I called insurance, and whenever I felt stress or anxiousness coming back, I went through the previous steps. In the end, it was a damage of around 12,000 euros. But luckily it has a happy end, and the insurance was willing to pay. And not only that, I found a system or a strategy I can use whenever I'm feeling anxious or stressed.